He
Hello.
he is in
Hi.
my dance history class, and so we're doing a project on the Charleston and kind of its origins and where it came from, how it's contributed to dance history, all those good things. And so we were just wondering if we could talk to you a little bit about your dance background, your childhood background, what got you interested in the Charleston, and yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm just curious too. Like, did you guys choose the Charleston? Was it assigned to you, or what?
Yeah, so we could choose any topics from what we've been studying, and we've been we were just interested in the dance, and we wanted to actually do the Charleston, so we're gonna like do the dance and film it and kind of like add that to our project. So it was something that we thought would be fun, and I had a really good time doing our dance last spring. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so shoot, go ahead. Question number 1.
Okay, so just what is your dance background?
Well, my dance background specifically is like jazz, contemporary lyrical, and then hip hop and all of the kind of subsets within hip hop dance culture. So that would include funk dances, like locking and party dances, and then boogaloo, popping, house, and which is footwork, and then just like hip hop party dances, like 90s hip hop, as well as kind of more mainstream current choreography, hip hop choreography, and the thing I've probably been, and then a little bit of breaking in there. So it's kind of like well rounded. There's some tap in there and ballet, of course. So that's my background in terms of like what I'm trained in. In terms of my experience in study, I actually started in musical theater at a young age, like 5. And around 8, that kind of introduced me to dance because we would do musicals and numbers. And so I remember the choreographer, she basically recruited me to do some summer dance programs at Civic Light Opera Theater. So that's how I started just training in dance. And I did that. I did summer programs in dance. I never really danced at a studio. I just always did the summer thing in the plays. Then once I got to middle school, at around 12, I went to Arts Magnet. And so I studied dance every day in middle school and in high school. And then in high school, like as a senior, I was on a few different dance teams and companies. I was on Teen Dance Company in the Bay Area, dancing with a lot of studio-trained dancers from really great studios, Dance Attack, and things like that, when Dance Attack was really, really good back in the day. And then on my school dance team, we danced with really great dancers from Yoko. So I really was just able to be a part of great dance organizations, and I took dance every day at school. And that just kind of opened up a lot of other opportunities, and danced with like a modern company in college. And I just always continued to dance. And so that and the longevity of just being in the dance community in different places has allowed me to pick up a lot of different styles of movement. And I still do teach all those styles, but I also take a lot of class. So I'm always still learning. Lindy Hop and authentic jazz has been probably the most recent dance discovery and practice. I really enjoyed it just because I realized that I was kind of going backwards on a timeline, like a continuum of movement, and I realized how much of all the other forms I had learned were already a part of this dance. And so it was nice to kind of understand a dance history that way, the progression of movement, and how it's still the same in so many ways. So that kind of gives you, I guess, an overview of my dance background.
Yeah, that's perfect. So I remember last year when we were learning our dance, you had a particularly strong interest in the Charleston, and like you were saying, the Lindy Hop and authentic jazz. I was just wondering how you got involved with that and how that resonates with you personally.
Okay. I got involved with it because a friend of mine, her name is Tracy Bartlow, she's way better and more knowledgeable than me, but I danced with her in a company, and we did mostly like hip hop styles mixed with like, you know, jazz and modern contemporary, because we have similar backgrounds. She's older than me. She like lives in New York and trained like at AV and stuff, but we had very similar backgrounds in terms of technique. And so she really did introduce me to Lindy Hop and authentic jazz, because she was just a step ahead of me in discovering it and training it. And she actually became a Lindy Hop ambassador, a Frankie Manning ambassador. So Frankie Manning is one of the most like prolific names within authentic jazz and Lindy Hop. There's like a viral clip called "Hell's a Poppin'," and he was, as a young, like 20-something-year-old, he choreographed that whole scene, which seems improvisational and is in this movie, but it was choreographed. So not many people know his name, but people within the swing dance Lindy Hop community definitely know his name. She's an ambassador for one of his foundations and organizations. So she had a lot to do with exposing me to the culture that already exists. It's a huge international dance culture, but it's very isolated in the fact that it doesn't really cross paths with our mainstream dance culture or even concert dance culture, because it's a social dance. And in some ways it crosses lines, but not mostly like other dances do. So that was just basically my introduction. I was able to participate in different things. I participated in Frankie Manning 100, which was a huge like international sort of conference about and celebration of Frankie Manning's 100th birthday in New York. And so I danced with a lot of swing dancers across the world, and we danced at the Apollo Theater, which is historic for like the dances that were happening in Harlem. So it was just being immersed in the culture. That's how I got interested in it. And I guess why it's deep and like why I want to explore it more, why it's personal to me as an individual, is because you know, being a black person in America, your identity and the process of establishing it is really complicated, because you don't have a lineage to really connect with, because you can't go further than slavery. And unfortunately, you know, with slavery, that past is not recorded, because those people were not even considered people. So it's troubling to feel like a part of a culture, and you can't trace that history. And so for me, I've always had a connection to my culture, through my culture, my relationship with music and dance. So that's part of why I kind of went backwards with hip-hop. Like, I started just doing hip-hop because it was a thing to do, and that's kind of the generation I'm from. But I started to go back further than that, like funk dances, you know, in the 70s. Because it's like, that's something that I can relate to. And although I wasn't there, there's a part of me that feels connected to it naturally. So that's kind of how my exploration started, to just keep going backwards of like, there's a lineage that I feel connected to that I need to learn more about. And it's not like in the history books, because it's social dance and it's social movement. And so it's not recorded in the same way as how we define other kind of historical art forms. It's just now being recorded and valued to the point where you're studying it and doing an assignment on it. So that was my personal connection to it, is that like, it's as far back as I can go to a roots and a culture, a cultural history that I can relate to and identify with. And it goes back to the early 1900s. And so it's just in that, and knowing that like my great-grandmother did these dances. Mm-hmm. That to me is really important. Otherwise, I don't have anything to connect to. I really don't relate to anything African, because I'm not from Africa. I've never been there. And it's a whole other culture and language. Yeah. So I can't connect with that. But what I can connect with is a deep-rooted American history in music and dance with black people. And so that's why I gravitate towards Lindy Hop, because it was created by young black teenagers in Harlem. And so the Charleston is a dance that became really, it became just like anything else in hip-hop, and pretty much most black social dances, they become exposed to the masses, and then they become popular, and in a lot of ways exploited. So, like any dance form, like breaking, you know, we've seen those like kind of cheesier reproductions of these things, you know. But it's like back in the day, this dance form was done on plantations. It was done. People just didn't know about it. Then, you know, maybe a popular song comes along, and everybody gets to hear about it and know it. Just like these party dances now, like dabbing and whip and nay-nay. It's like these are dances that are old to the community that started it. But the whole rest of the world, once it becomes popular in mainstream culture, then everybody knows about it, everybody does it. But people don't necessarily know the story of its roots, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like the Charleston is another dance like that. It was the same exact thing that happened. It just happened in a different time period. But it was a dance that community had been doing, and there were so many people that did it on different levels. But then it became popular to the point where in the 1920s you see like, you know, the little flapper girls and stuff doing the Charleston, and you see that stuff on TV. But it had been done way before that. So that's what's interesting to me. The Charleston is also pretty interesting because you see the same movement repeated back in the 90s with the Kid and Play. And so the Charleston is something that's like, where like the kids in the 90s, the hip-hop generation of that culture, they didn't know that they were doing the Charleston. They just recreated a dance. And so to me, that's what I love, because it shows that the spirit of the movement, it just rebirths itself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That there's more to the movement than the movement itself, but that the movement is attached to the spirit of a certain culture and a certain energy. And so to me, that makes it really much more interesting and deeply personal that has that story. And I've seen other people do it. And then there's just like, you see how creative it can be, especially when you watch those original, authentic Lindy Hop dancers. When you watch Alan Leon, they had a duet, a jazz duet, and they were really big on the Charleston. Then you have the Nicholas brothers, who did much more than the Charleston. Alan Leon, if you look them up, they have a really cool clip where they're doing variations of the Charleston and breaking it down. So you see like less of the generic kind of popular version, and you see the really creative version where people kind of flip it and do a bunch of things with it. And then you see people now in the international swing dance community of all nationalities emulating that freestyle of Charleston. So everything comes back full circle. You got people in Sweden doing the Charleston like old black men did in the 1913. You know what I mean? So it's just really interesting how there's a legacy of movement and how history kind of repeats itself, but it kind of changes at the same time and it evolves in terms of the people that carry it on. So I know I kind of talked about a lot, but hopefully that answered your question somewhere in there.
It definitely did. Also, we were wondering, so you kind of touched upon it, but how do you think the Charleston is making an appearance in today's world?
Like I said, there's a nostalgia that's really attached to this era, the Harlem Renaissance and the jazz music, Savoy Ballroom, and things like that. So I feel like, you know, nowadays it's so weird. As we evolve, culture kind of gets watered down, you know, and there's so much more assimilation on all levels and on all parts, to where, like, many people of multi-generations relate to the same thing. And so what I see is this, in that kind of watering down of culture, as it being evolution of it, we are still kind of searching for more, you know, like something to identify with. So it's weird how we lose it and then we look for it again. And I see that happening as a trend within the dance world, within the swing dance community, like it's international.